Okay, this is lesson 22. There's a lot of academic vocabulary in this content goal, so let's break it apart really quick. I can decontextualize, which means to isolate or to remove from context. So I can decontextualize a given speed situation, representing symbolically, so like using a letter to represent or using a symbol to represent something, the quantities involved with the formula distance equals rate times time. So what all this basically means is we're going to be looking at word problems that involve like how fast something goes, how fast something moves, and we are going to be using this formula. Distance equals rate times time, and I'm going to talk about that more in just a second. But we're going to be using that formula in different ways to figure out either how fast something goes or how far something travels, something like that. So we're going to get more into that as in just a second. We do have some new terms in today's lesson and what they look like. So the first one is distance. Distance, which means how far or the length of something. Some units that might be measured in include centimeters, miles, kilometers. There's more. Anything that involves measuring the length of something. And a question for distance would look like how far. So how far did the car travel? How far did the animal move? Something like that. But those are some keywords. Rate is another new term, and we have, it's actually not really a new term because we've been talking about rate and unit rate. So just to remind you, that means the quantity per just one unit. So that might look like miles per hour or centimeters per minute, something like that, where the second unit is just one. Okay, we've been spending a lot of time talking about unit rate. A question to prompt you when it's asking for rate, it might say, how fast, or what was the rate of speed? And time is the last new term for this lesson to be applied, and it means how long something takes. I know we're all aware of that, but just making sure in this context we know what that looks like. So units that it could be measured in, it might be measured in hours, minutes, or seconds. And some questions to allow us to know that they want us to find the time is it might say how long did it take for the car to travel, this rate or whatnot. Okay, since this is a lesson on practicing that distance, rate, and time formula, there is a lot of math in this lesson that would take a long time, long division problems, and a lot of them. So a tool for this particular lesson, and if we want you to use this tool, we'll specifically tell you, but for this particular lesson, to focus only on the content goal, because this is not a long division lesson. This is not a multiplication lesson. We're practicing a new skill that is very challenging on its own. So we want to kind of scaffold that by asking you for this lesson if you could use a calculator to do the math. So again, we will tell you if we want you to use a calculator. So in this particular lesson, we would like you to. You could use your iPhone to use the calculator on there, or any phone that you have. You might have a regular calculator laying around your house. If not, you can use your Chromebook. You can Google, calculator, and you can use it on your Chromebook. But that's just going to save a lot of time to focus on the main content goal for this lesson today. Next, this drawing is amazing and wonderful. This is a magic triangle that's going to remind us how to calculate for either distance, rate, or time. So these formulas you absolutely want to write down somewhere that you can refer back to. So one thing you might want to do is put this maybe in the front little clear part of your math folder for the next couple of lessons. You might want to write it on a piece of paper and just put it on the inside pocket, somewhere where you can see this a lot. Maybe you could put it on your wall if there's next to your desk, if that's where you work every day, but somewhere where you can refer back to this. So how the triangle part works, we have these three formulas, how to find distance. Distance is rate times time. So how to find rate. Rate is going to be distance divided by time. How to find time. Time is distance divided by rate. So we're just working with those three new terms that I went over: distance, rate, and time. They're just manipulated differently depending on which one it is that you want to find. This triangle here is really cool because if you are ever working on a test, you can just draw this really quick and it can remind you how to find the formula. For example, if I'm looking for distance, I can cover up the D and see that I need to do R times T. See how they are laid equal in the triangle? If I want to find rate, I could cover rate and it's distance over time. If I want to find time, I could cover that up and I know it's distance divided by rate. Okay, so if you just cover up whichever one you're looking for, you can see the formula that you need to do. If I were to write this, it would look like D over R, meaning distance divided by rate, or distance divided by time. When I cover up distance, these two are equal because I'm multiplying the two. I'm not dividing anything. Okay, so that's a really neat triangle that you could draw, and then when you're working on a topic quiz, working on a test, anything like that, going forward one day, you could, remember, oh, Miss Rondella taught me how to draw this triangle, and it'll help you figure out what formula it is you need to use. All right, so let's, you are going to skip to, you want to find example 2, and it says part 1, it's talking about Chris Johnson, and he's a runner, so you should, maybe see his picture. I don't actually know what your copy would look like, but example 2, part 1, Chris Johnson. That's what we're skipping forward to. Chris Johnson ran the 40-yard dash in 4.24 seconds, or 4 seconds and 24 hundredths of a second. What is the rate of speed? Round any answer to the nearest hundredth. So, breaking apart what this is here. I talked about those three terms at the beginning: distance, rate, and time. That's all we're looking for. So 40 yards, that sounds like a measurement of distance. That's how long something is. Okay, 4.24 seconds, that's time. That's a measurement of time. Okay, and then rate of speed, that's one of those questions that I talked about at the beginning. That's asking us to find the rate. When it says how fast or what was the rate of speed, it wants us to say like this many seconds per, or yards per second, this many miles per hour. It wants the rate. So the question we're looking for is the rate. I'm dictating it with these letters over top, and I'm going to prompt you to do that on all of them, including the problem set, because it's going to help you figure out what you're looking for and which formula to use. So on this one, we are using rate, and I can remember by even drawing my little triangle. Got distance, rate, and time, just like this. So in this particular problem, we're looking for rate. So if I cover that up, rate equals distance over time is what I'm looking for. So I know that's the formula I can plug in. So now I'm going to plug in the numbers to try to figure this out. So I don't know the rate, but I do know the distance is 40 yards. I do know the time is 4.24 seconds. 4 seconds and 24 hundredths of a second. So rate equals this equation here. So my final answer is going to be in yards per second, but to figure out the numerical value, the numerical rate, I'm going to have to divide. So I see I need to do 40 divided by 4.24. So this is not a long division lesson. I did the division out myself to start, and it was a lot of work, and I said, that's not the goal of this lesson. So that's why we made the decision to have you guys go ahead and use a calculator. So if I take 40, I don't know if you can see on my phone, if I take 40 and I'm gonna divide that by 4.24, and I get this long answer here. It says round any answer to the nearest hundredth. So hundredths place is the second number after the decimal, tens place, hundredths place. I need to look at the thousandths place to see if it's 5 or more, then I would round up. However, it is not, so I would round this to 9 and 43 hundredths. 9 and 43 hundredths yards per second. That label's not going anywhere. I can't cross anything off. And that does sound like a rate. Remember Mr. Rondell said at the beginning it would sound like yards per second. So rate 9 and 43 hundredths of a yard per second.